Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is McKay Allen. I'm the Director of Content and Communications at Convirza, formerly known as LogMyCalls. And we're excited you're here today for today's special webinar with Michael Stricker, the U.S. Marketing Director at SEMrush. We're excited that Michael's agreed to join us today. I'll introduce him in a moment. The title of today's webinar is How Competitive Research Fuels Lead Generation. Should be a great one. First, a couple of quick items. People often ask, who is Convirza and what the heck do you do? Convirza, we're a call optimization platform. So we essentially do three things related to phone calls. The first is we provide attribution. We tell marketers which ads, campaigns, and keywords generate phone calls. So we can marry web activity to phone calls. The second thing we do is analytics. We actually analyze the phone call with voice recognition technology and pull out some very big data style pieces of data from the phone calls themselves, deep analytics. The third thing we do is automation. So with those analytics, you can automate bid management for AdWords. You can automate CRM actions. You can automate marketing automation actions, things like lead scoring within those platforms. So all of those things can be done and based around and built around phone calls. That's what we do. We really want to be known as the deep data company for phone calls. So second question people ask is, why do you host these webinars? We've done about 250 webinars in the last 2 years. We do a lot of them. And the reason simply is because we like to share useful content. So we get some of the best and most well-known marketing experts in the world, and we invite them on our webinar series, and they present incredible content. And the same as it could be said today of Michael Stricker. So we've had fantastic guests on, and we will continue to have great guests on. Tomorrow, in fact, we have a webinar with an agency out of Toronto called G-Shift. They're going to talk about content marketing and how to succeed in that world. So should be another great webinar tomorrow as well. The only other thing to mention in terms of house cleaning items before I introduce Michael is we encourage you to ask questions. Please, please find the question bar on your GoToWebinar screen there and ask questions. So to test this out, to make sure you know exactly where it is, why don't you type in today where you're calling in from, where you're dialing in from today. Let's get you all to type in to the question bar precisely where you're dialing in from. So I'll start. I'm dialing in from Salt Lake City. That's where Convirza's offices are. We also have an office in Southern California, but our headquarters are in Salt Lake, and Michael is in Philadelphia. Though SEMrush is all around the world, he's based in Philly. So people are typing in now. We have, my goodness, we have a lot. So Andrew's in Atlanta, Cynthia is in Winston-Salem, Mark is in New Jersey, Monica's in Jacksonville, we have Miami, we have Cleveland. Sorry about the Cavs and their loss. Stephen, just, can't win them all. Cheryl from New Hampshire. Where in New Hampshire, Cheryl? Why don't you type in where in New Hampshire? I lived there for a while. We've got Detroit, Valencia, California, Edmonton, Alberta, several people in Philly. We've got lots of people from Florida, Gilbert, Arizona, Seattle, Minneapolis, Detroit, all over the map. So that's exciting. Raleigh, the growing tech hub in Raleigh, Rachel. So Cheryl says she's in Newton. I've been to Newton, Cheryl. Good place. So all over the map. So thanks for dialing in today, everybody. We really appreciate it. The only thing to mention before I introduce Michael is we will send out an email tomorrow that has the presentation as well as the recording. So don't worry about taking notes today. Just get involved in the discussion. We encourage you to ask questions, as I said, and soak it in, and we'll make the information available to you so you can do a more thorough deep dive into the content itself, so you can pay more attention on the call. So with that, I want to introduce Mr. Michael Stricker. He is the U.S. Marketing Director at SEMrush. He's been there for 14 months, he just told me. Prior to that, he had just a significant amount of experience in the digital marketing world, including companies like WebEmax. He worked at the YMCA, and a variety of, it looks like he was an owner of a graphic design and web design company as well. So he's got just a ton of experience. And we're really excited that he's now combining that experience with just really rich data that SEMrush provides. So we're thrilled to welcome Michael to today's webinar. Michael, I will give you control of the screen, sir, and you can go ahead and
thank you.
Begin. So Michael, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. How are things in Philly today?
Thank you. Peter, at McKay, it's great to be here. Philadelphia is really having a spate of rainy weather, so wherever you are in the U.S. or around the world, you are probably enjoying better weather than we are.
Nice.
But, it's summertime, so it will change soon, and, it's really nice to be here. McKay, I got to say thanks for having us, because I know you've done several webinars with SEMrush on our channel, and you've always been a very welcome speaker. You had great messages to give people, and what your company, what Convirza has been doing with inbound call technology and capturing all that data and finding ways for people to integrate it into their other marketing efforts. Hats off. You guys are miles ahead of the competition. Just, love what you've been doing. Okay. So having said that, we can see our title screen here, how competition data fuels your lead generation. So we've spoken on this several times. I'm always surprised that people think that this is difficult, and it's kind of makes me feel somewhat embarrassed that, it's really not that difficult. It's really so simple once you go through it. And I'm going to do this in a way that I'm going to mention some other tools as well during my presentation, but I am going to use SEMrush just as a way of demonstrating how easily you can get at leads specifically for your sales and marketing purposes. If you're a content marketer, and if you are working on lead generation from the point of view of having lead magnets and developing big, deep, rich content and putting gate forms in front of that and collecting data, that's a great way of getting contacts. And that's all well and good, and that's a pretty complicated process, and it has a lot to do with what field you happen to be in, what your industry is, what type of business you're in. But what we're going to talk about here is something that is so simple that, and I shudder to say this, but even a salesperson could do this, and it's really not that difficult. If you are a small business owner, and maybe McKay, you can field any questions from people or any responses. Be interesting to know how many of you work at agencies, how many of you work for particular brands, how many of you are consultants, maybe you work for multiple brands, and maybe how many of you are actually in the sales end of things, the sales department, or run your own show. You have your own e-tail, you have your own manufacturer or something, and you're looking for ways of gaining leads. So you can see my experience here on the screen, and I'm just going to move ahead to, we're going to talk about using SEMrush for lead gen, plus just an angle on how the results can be used to prepare proposals in a way that is going to help you sell. And that's going to be doubly important. The people that you actually manage to have conversations with, you want to have some really demonstrative data to put in front of them. Can certainly cut to the quick and get a good response back from them. And if you stay to the end of this webinar, I just want you to know you'll have access to a free SEMrush 30-day trial. We'll make that available to you. You'll see a bit.ly code on the screen. You're perfectly willing and able to take advantage of that. And if anybody misses it, I'm sure that we can get in touch directly after the webinar or add it to the questions during the course of this. And I'm encouraging people, we have some social media people standing by. If you use the hashtag online business, or if you use the hashtag, or if you @ SEMrush, you're going to have some people online who are going to converse with you. So feel free to talk about the webinar, feel free to ask questions or make comments, and we like to see what people are thinking and saying. 5 basic points for the webinar as I go through: how to use competitive intelligence to sell. It's very straightforward. Compare and contrast with purpose. You don't want to just throw any data up in front of a prospect, but it has to be very informative, and it has to be the kind of killer data that they relate to. 5 charts that graphically motivate prospects. So even within SEMrush and other tools, there are certain things that are going to just light a fire under your leads, under your prospects, and are going to make them want to act on the information that you're giving them, perhaps take you up on your offer or the opportunity. Listening to prospects, it's always better to listen, because when you listen enough and you find out what the pain points really are, it makes it possible for you to offer some good advice or some good ideas, at least to sympathize with their position. And it's always better to do that and answer what their issues are in their mind than it is to try and sell and push a solution on them. And that's all that I really need to say about that. Inject reputation, local, and mobile into proposals. Yeah, if the web plays any part in your marketing, then you're probably aware that over half of the searches that take place in Google now occur via mobile. With that said, you have to consider not just how your website presents on mobile, but you have to think about how that affects your prospects, how it affects the people who would be your leads, and whether you need to have conversations about how people are finding them on mobile, if you're selling digital marketing services or whatever it is you're selling. How does mobile play into their business? There certainly are businesses that are highly localized. So great shot from photos of really, really scared people. This is colossal. I love this. You've probably seen these shots of people going through a fun house at Halloween time, but the point here is using the intelligence to motivate prospects. It's not just a matter of throwing a bunch of stuff in front of them, but cutting it down, distilling it to the essence, and making it something they will have an emotional reaction to. Tim Ash was a recent webinar guest for us. Tim Ash of site conversion outfit does a great job as a speaker. He's very, very well known, and he breaks it down to what he calls the lizard brain. Everybody can go back to a primitive brain that is theirs and can think about what really motivates them. You're always motivated out of some very basic things, out of fear or desire. So fear, if you're talking to your prospects, the fear is the fear of competition, which he relates back to caveman fear of getting eaten, shifting markets or getting lost, and fear of being outmoded or disappearing or being invisible. And that's a primary factor behind findability, behind organic search, making sure that your ads are running in Google and elsewhere. And then the other side of it is desire. Well, you want success, and he relates that to the sexual drive to mate, and he makes it very primitive. Desire to eat, consume. So whether talking to companies that are consuming other companies or consuming goods, materials, those kinds of things. And finally, desire for novelty, because we all want to learn something new or to have some time to play. So diving directly into it, hopefully we've got some ideas from the audience who you are selling to, or who you have successfully sold to in the past, should lead the parade here. The idea is that when you use tools like SEMrush or other digital methods of identifying leads, we would want to look at what we'll call look-alike marketing. We want to find domains and companies that are most like your best customers, the people that you have sold to in the past, the people that you are trying to sell to. That's one thing. You may have a desired market, but you really need to know who you have been successful selling to. That's where your greatest success is going to lie. You can always try and change that, change the type of company that you're selling to, maybe sell to bigger companies or larger brands or more diversified or whatever, but find out who you're really selling well to now internally to have conversations with sales or whoever you need to, and come back to this and think about the domains of those that you have sold to. You're going to start with that. And then branch that out and think about, in a very simple way, brand terms, the names of their brands, the names of their products, and even you can get as specific as product SKUs. You can have product numbers and things as specific as that and still find lookalike marketing opportunities using that information. In addition to identifying, if we're thinking about paid and organic, obviously we've been talking about keywords, including brand names and the rest of it, but also descriptive words about their products, perhaps slang terms that describe what they sell or their services. And in addition to that, an idea of their niche. So knowing about the industries into which you sell most effectively is going to give you a good idea. When you see results of domains and companies, you'll know which ones are really your best prospects. When we're looking for this information, we're going to look for ways to motivate the companies that we identify. So it's not enough to identify prospects. Of course, we have to have a story to tell them. So what we want to do is learn a little bit about their business in such a way that we have some effective information to present. You want to motivate them by traffic. So when I'm talking to a particular domain or company about selling them my products or services, I want to know what their traffic share is. For the most popular keywords that they hold and probably share with other large domains, what share? Are they the biggest player, or are they second? Is there an opportunity with somebody they're running neck and neck with, or are they being thoroughly trounced? It's great to know this. You can come in and you will seem that much better informed. It won't be a cold call or a blank conversation. You want to find out who's effective, and that's where you can motivate by traffic. Motivate by organic traffic cost. I can see in tools such as SEMrush, I can see what it would cost to get that volume of organic search traffic on my website if I had to pay for it, if I were buying AdWords ads instead of simply getting this organically. When I know that, and I apply this cost, I've got a great idea that, gee, my content on my site, my blog, all the things that make me visible in Google really have a value behind them. And if I had to pay for that exposure, well, it could be tens of thousands of dollars per month that it would cost to get that kind of exposure. So it's good to know. And this technique of finding out organic traffic cost tells you who's most efficient. When you can attract a lot of organic or free traffic in search, then you're going to be more efficient in your use of dollars. Yes, you still may have to spend budget on AdWords, but the more traffic you can attract organically, the more efficient a marketer you are. When you know this about your prospects, it gives you an idea of how smart they are, how efficient their marketing is, or if you see an inefficient competitor and you're talking to them, they may be overspending because they're trying so hard to compete. And if what you do, service-wise or product-wise, is going to help them do that, then you've got a story to tell. Finally, this is a big motivating factor. You can show competitors are using the brand name of their competitors in their ads and in their content. So it's easy to find that among the keywords for a particular brand such as chapstick, you'll find comparisons to Burt's Bees. Depending on what you're looking for, there will be comparisons between the two brands, and that can also be done in paid advertising. When people see their foe using their brand name in their advertising, then it certainly puts the fear into the people that you're talking to, and it can help motivate them. Identify and motivate. So you want to look for smart marketers. Their cost per traffic unit will help measure both their effectiveness and efficiency. And you're looking for keywords up. The number of keywords for which they appear in Google are up. The traffic that results from that is up, but their spend, if they're really smart, is going down. So knowing that you're working with smart marketers, knowing that they're growing, hopefully they'll have more budget to buy your products and services, and that could be a good place to go. Overall budget, you can see AdWords spenders, and I can break this down by category. I can break this down by regions, localities. I can do this by state and city level. I can look at particular industries, especially with some knowledge about them, and I can look for signs that somebody is struggling, and I can talk to these people who may be in a sensitive or vulnerable position, and therefore are more likely to buy something that they think is going to help them out. Okay, Google Shopping ads. Now, PLAs, or Google Shopping ads, are really, really effective. And Walmart shifted 80% of their ad budget over to PLAs from AdWords. So they really work fantastically well. And I can look among PLAs when I'm talking about merchandise companies, when I'm talking about e-tailers and e-commerce outfits that sell physical goods, I can look for lookalike marketing opportunities among PLAs. And this is important to note, and maybe we'll hear this again, but when you look among product listing ads, and those are the little pictorial ads that appear to the upper right when you're searching for something in Google by, say, product or brand name, if I look at those ads, I can use them to find, I can filter the results by product, in a tool like SEMrush, which is one of the first to have this data. But I can also find companies that are using excuse me, product listing ads exclusively. They have no organic content. They barely have a website enough to convert their PLA ads, but they aren't trying to get visible in search, and they're not running AdWords ads. So how would you find these companies to sell to if you didn't look at the PLA ads? And the great news is that with a tool like SEMrush, you can look at PLA ads en masse. I can see tens and hundreds of thousands of them, and I can pick through them at will. Local SEO mobile search, there is a tool called Position Tracker within SEMrush, and I can enter domains and I can get their competitors by location. I can do this at national, state, or city level, so I can be pretty selective. This is important because you may find national firms that are working hard to win local markets, and they're spending money on ads, but they're difficult to detect when you just use a regular Google search. So if you really want to find these, being able to narrow your search results to find these companies and treat them as the competitors, excuse me, or as the lead prospects that they are, this is a very, very useful thing. So I can also look at these results throughout SEMrush as if by device. So I can see whether the view of important domains changes from desktop search to mobile search. And sometimes it changes pretty radically. So this is something that you can easily take a look at. Right. In addition to SEMrush, you can take a look at social media. You can look at networks of value to your lookalike marketing, to your prospective customer. Whoever your ideal customer is likely to be in certain networks. And you can do market research of social visibility, of social engagement. And there's a list of tools here. Topsy, Social Mention. Mention is a nice tool SEMrush uses. And data available through Social Bakers, for instance. Find out on the networks that are most important to the industry that your best customers are in. Find out which networks they're in and find out their visibility there, especially compared to the competition. You can do a lot of searching there. Finding networks of scale is, of course, very important, and engagement overall. Engagement is really important to take a look at in terms of, I'm going to back up one here. I'm going to use my cursor. Engagement is important because if you're a content marketer, as so many business-to-business marketers are, you're relying on a lot of content to bring people into your funnels and nurture them down the path to purchase. Knowing the engagement with particular headlines and particular kinds of content, whether it's quizzes or whether it's listicles or whatever that medium is important to know. And tools like BuzzSumo can give you a great insight into that. And they will let you know companies that are highly visible for a particular keyword, or companies that are, competing with a particular domain. All right. So content types, we've just mentioned that, form and headlines, good ways to identify. Now, identifying prospects, if you take away nothing else from today's webinar, you're going to want to remember custom reports. In SEMrush, even though there is a desktop tool that you would use, it's a web-based tool, it's very easy, a lot of people like its graphic presentation, but you can do custom reports at huge scale that would include entire industries. For instance, thinking here, we may talk about the flag industry today, so you may want to look at an entire industry of flag manufacturers, resellers, or whatever, and you can, using various keyword and domain approaches, you can do the kind of research that's going to give you a ton of leads that are effective leads, that are smart marketers, that are going to be open to your message and open to possibly purchase your services or products because they're doing well. And the companies that are doing well in digital are among the leading companies in the U.S. today, even though only about 10% of everything that's sold in the U.S. is sold through e-commerce. Those that are using e-commerce are performing better than those who are not. So you can do searches of such scale that you could find the results for every single keyword for which Amazon ranks. I can find every non-branded keyword, or therefore every product that is invested in by Walmart for purposes of their advertising. For instance, a big social network came to SEMrush, and I'm not going to say their name, but they came to SEMrush and said, we're going into advertising. We want to know every AdWord that appears among the most popular that are bid on in AdWords. Every AdWord that's bid, every keyword that is bid on, and every domain that bids for those keywords. So what they really got was, a huge cross-section of people who are spending money on digital advertising, on online advertising in the U.S. And we think about that. That's a huge number of domains and a great prospecting list for somebody selling advertising. That's how big it can get. And then you can think about a total of 28 international databases of search data that's available in a tool like SEMrush. So it's not just the U.S. You could do this and break into other markets as well. You can find leads in other nations. Knowing the language, of course, and some of the culture will be important, but you can do it. And let's move on. So at the end of the process where you would get this data out of SEMrush about their marketing and their products and their
Looks like we've lost Michael's audio. Michael, if you're there, can you hear us? Michael? We're going to try to get Michael back. Give me 1 second, everybody.
The companies that you identify as being prospects.
Hey, Michael, you still there?
Yes, sir.
We lost your audio for a moment there. You keep fading in and out. So we'll just keep our eye on that. Just pay attention to your chat and watch for chats from me if your audio starts to drop. We may have you dial in on a hard line as opposed to your computer. Just be aware of that.
Okay. I'm full screen, so it's going to be hard to see the chat, but I'll keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So compare and contrast with purpose. Just want to say a couple of do's and don'ts here. So when you are talking to a prospect, and I just talked to a gentleman from Sweden, he's using our data about AdWords buyers in Sweden as a prospecting tool there, and also publishing that data. He's saying don't insult the vendors or that are currently in use by your prospect. You don't have to, especially when you have some inside information about how well they're selling, or how visible they are in search, or how much it's costing them, for their advertising and those things. You don't need to insult the current vendors when you have the data, and the data tells a story for you that maybe they're not getting the best results that they could otherwise. Don't oversell your services. Don't overstuff too many things in one. Try to, sell a clearly defined package. When I say don't package, I'm saying don't, tie too many things together in one, because 10 to 1, they're going to want to unbundle whatever it is you put together and put it together differently. So make it easy for somebody to buy it in pieces or phases or whatever. What you can do is you can scare with share. So we'll see some results here very shortly. We're going to see some results out of SEMrush where we talk about how much share a particular company has in relation to its competitors. You can teach with reach. How many people can they reach in organic search or paid search or PLAs? You can talk corner office talk, which is all about revenue. You want to talk about share of market, and you want to talk about your ability to bring a reliable stream of interested people. And you want to tell a story in pictures or graphs whenever possible. And a final one here, if you're going to speak of the success of your company as part of your selling process, do it in the genuine voice of others. So, we're fortunate to have Chad Pollitt, great webinar guest, does a lot of content marketing and consulting. And so his position about SEMrush was very nicely put, and this is the kind of information that you want to provide to others. It certainly adds credibility and trust when you do it that way. Hooray! Now, I finally come to the part where we're going to talk about charts, things that you can do and see in SEMrush that are going to make it easy to get at leads and prospects, and also things that are going to make it easier to motivate them to buy from you. So, having said that, I'm going to pop out of here and go back over to the actual tool itself in the hopes that we have some great information for you. So, let's say I sell flags, and I know that there's a lot of talk about the Confederate flag and the U.S. flag. So if I had to take down a Confederate flag and replace it with a U.S. flag, I might be in the market to buy a flag. If I felt differently about the Confederate flag than a Yankee might, I might want to buy a Confederate flag and fly that flag. Quick story, I live in Burlington, New Jersey, near Philadelphia. Across the street from my house is the Ulysses S. Grant House, where his family lived during the Civil War. A gentleman lived in that house, and even though it was the Ulysses S. Grant House and it was the general during the Civil War for the Union, he flew a Confederate flag on his front porch for years because he just liked the way it started conversations or something. So all that said, it just brings up flags as a possible topic. If I'm selling flags and I've sold to Flag Co., can I find other companies that would be good prospects for me? And yes, heck yes. If I start out with an overview report here in SEMrush, and all I do is enter a domain, flagco.com, I'm going to drop down, and the first thing I'm going to see is an overview. Organic search, paid search, backlinks, display advertising. And I can dive in here, and right away, I can get here to see main competitors. So here in the lower left quadrant of the screen, we see main competitors 634. It's not hard to get at. If I've sold to Flag Co., these people are working on the same products or the same kinds of brands sometimes, and I can pull this whole list. I can view the full report right here, and I can also export all 634 of these prospects, and bang, I've just got all of these prospects. Now, if you are operating webinars or you're paying others for leads and you're paying $40 a lead or more, how quick and how easy was it to get at 634 competitors, right? You'd have to say that this is a pretty quick way of getting at relevant, similar kinds of companies to do some lookalike marketing. Right to the side of this is competitive positioning map for organic. So if I look at Flag Co., which is where I started, I can right away see companies that are maybe have more products because they have more keywords, and companies that are doing better in search because maybe they're just smarter about how they're doing it or they've been at it longer. And these two companies on the far right, Custom Made Flags and the Flag Maker, are pretty strong competitors to Flag Co. So if I am going to talk about competition, I can bring these up, and 10 to 1, that prospect is going to know of these competitors, and they're going to appreciate that I know something about their market because I took the time to do some research. Similarly, to the organic research that we just looked at, okay, I can look at the competitors report here. Organically, for Flag Co., I see 179 keywords, not a whole lot, but I see another representation of the competitive chart in the upper right that I just went over. The organic competitors here, out of 634, I can see this highlighted column, the competition level. I can see how competitive these particular domains are with them in online marketing and how many keywords they share in common. If I wanted to see those keywords, I could easily just click and see those keywords right here. So I can see if they're actually selling U.S. flags or flag poles, or are they selling Confederate flags or whatever. And I can see all that right here. And again, I can export this entire list directly from here. Okay, so broadly speaking, I see that flagco.com has pretty strong competitors, and I see that I can get 634 of them right off the bat. But what about smart competitors? What about ones that are perhaps even more effective? Well, if I go to paid search, which is over here, I see advertising, research, and competitors. I can go and look up flagco.com, and now I can see paid ads. So those who are investing in ads are very serious about competition. And lo and behold, I look at my competitive chart and I see Flagco in brown, but I also see Flags Importer, and then way out here I see an even bigger competitor that I didn't see in the organic, and that's UnitedStatesFlag.com. Now, if I sell to Flagco, wow, I might be able to sell more to United States Flag. If I'm trying to sell to Flagco, I can scare them with information about United States Flag. So you're talking about motivation, and it's all visible here. I can get all of these domains from here. I can click through and find out more results about any individual domain here, which can be useful if I want to look at, say, Flags Importer. I can take a quick look at how they turn up results-wise. Are they strong? How many keywords are they operating on? Do they spend a lot of money on paid search? Well, I see a lot of experimenting going on in paid search over here. So they're trying hard to compete. I can get a sense if their competition is a little different from Flagco. Again, I can see the competitive chart. So I can click on through to that stuff. Now, another way of doing this, now that I've seen who the competitors are, I can start to pull the domains that I think I want to compare for a particular proposal or prospect, and I can throw them in here in domain versus domain. Now, domain versus domain is down here under Tools, Domain versus Domain, and I'm going to drop in the domain names here. I'm going to choose whether I want to look at organic keywords or paid keywords, or here's Google Shopping Ads, PLA keywords, and we'll get to that in a bit. And I run them up against each other, and lo and behold, I see that by the time I look at all of them together, they're sharing 8 keywords, and here are the keywords that they share. So they all sell stick flags. They all sell the possibility of ordering flags online. They sell flags in bulk. And if I were a flag manufacturer, well, heck, I might be able to sell them a whole boatload of flags. So we can see also an indoor flagpole kit and on from characterize the opportunities, which is definitely useful. And I can dig in further, like I said, whether it is in particular by organic keywords, or I can switch everything over and I can look at paid keywords for results. I'm going to do this individually here. And I'll run this again. Should just take a moment. And here we go. I see under paid, I see a lot more keywords, 194 being efforted by these companies. So these companies are not afraid to invest money in paid advertising in order to cheat. And because the way that this is displayed, I can see Flagco and their position for a primary keyword that gets a lot of traffic, 6,600 searches per month for national flags, but they're in position number 4, and Flags Importer is in position number 1. So we see United States Flag having a lot of great positions, Flags Importer having a lot of great positions, Flagco a little less so. If I were to take this back at the proposal stage and the conversation stage with this particular client or prospect, I'm going to have a good story to tell talking about their competitors and where they fit in. I'm going to take a quick look here then at shopping. So we want to talk about PLAs. I've mentioned Google Shopping a few times. If you're talking about products, saleable products sold online, PLAs are very powerful, and more U.S. companies are cognizant of that, and they are literally moving up to, I think the average now is almost 50% of their budget over into this particular kind of advertising. So we look in here, we see the PLA search, we see the product listing ad positions for this domain. United States Flag is one of the more powerful of the competitors that we were looking at. Here are 6,585 keywords for which their Google Shopping ads appear. U.S. flag, shadow box for a folded flag, flagpoles. These are keywords that their ads appear for. I can always go back and look at the pages that those particular products appear on. But some of these things, for instance, flagpoles, I can see a trend over here under the trend column. I can see a boost in popularity for items at particular times, like flagpoles sell more in the spring and summer when it's easier to break ground and actually erect things. So that's interesting to note. Timeliness is part of sales. So if you think about going after particular prospects, you'd have to say, well, if I am going to sell umbrellas, I'm going to go to people in the spring and fall maybe, or summer here in Philadelphia when it's raining like mad. So that's good stuff to know. What do these PLAs look like? You can see that right here just by clicking on the source, and there should be a snapshot here. So it's great to know this about these particular ads. Google's cached information coming through. All right, so that's PLAs, and that when you filter that by product, you could start with huge manufacturers or big brand e-coms, and you can go back and you could look at something very specifically, like a particular product by name, a brand by name, and you can find out specific information about them. So I want to get back over here. Just wanted to see what Philip had to say. Winners and losers. This is another great chart for motivational purposes. What you get here is 100,000 domains that are visible in Google, and how many of their keywords for which they moved up and how many for which they moved down. Did their search engine traffic, highlighted here, SE traffic, has their traffic gone up or has it gone down? Websites suffer sometimes according to Google's algorithmic changes, Panda, Penguin, you name it. There's other reasons why they go up and down, and if you can show from a list of 100,000 domains that your prospect's domain has gone up or gone down, that's a great story to be able to tell. You can also look at it from the point of view of showing them that their competitors perhaps are enjoying great success and that they have more ads traffic and they're enjoying a high volume of search engine traffic and an increase, whereas maybe the prospect's traffic is going down. So it's a good comparison, certainly can motivate people. And let's move to Chart Tool. This is a great graphic representation of 3 of the domains. So we just took 3 of the flag competitors, threw them in here. United States flag being the largest and most effective competitor. So when I compare them for their organic traffic here, right, organic traffic for all 3, I see a big jump between November and December in 2014 and pretty stable and even some growth into mid-2015. If I were to take this chart and I were to show Flagco and Flags Importer how much traffic this particular competitor was getting, then this could certainly motivate somebody into maybe saying, gee, yeah, I really want to beat them. Or even if I showed it to Flagco and I say, look, you're going neck and neck with this competitor, but you usually wind up not doing as well as them. There's some stories to be told here. And if I switch over to a very simple representation, now I've got more or less a market share. So if I know that I am Flagco, I can see that among these 3 competitors, I am the smallest. That's something that certainly bears pointing out. So back to the presentation. I'm going to blast through this stuff here, which will be in the slideshow. When you get to that point, if you choose to follow up, you won't need me to do it. You can look at the slideshow and get something out of it still. We're going to move to one of the final points now. Listen, why it's better to help than to sell. So what you really want to do is you want to do inbound marketing probably as opposed to outbound marketing. When we think about outbound marketing, it's all that kind of old-fashioned stuff, billboards and buying ads in print publications and broadcast media and those kinds of things. It's cold calling, you hit gatekeepers, you get a lukewarm response if you're lucky, you get blocked. People interpret your efforts at outbound marketing as being intrusive, impersonal, you interrupt them, they don't like it, so it costs a lot and it's labor intensive. On the other hand, Inbound, which is where many digital marketers are investing all of their money, has to do with figuring out what an issue or problem is. Well, we just kind of did some of that, didn't we? We can look at search. We can use a website or a blog for content marketing. You can take the contacts, and this is something that Convirza is able to do, is able to look at behaviors on site or in the call stream and give you instances where you should be nurturing people or on the phone with them, to further the conversation and perhaps move them closer to purchase, which is the point of all this. You want to close this. And so inbound marketing is seen as being helpful, relevant. It's relationship or permission-based marketing, sometimes it's called. It's definitely cheaper and more productive. So that brings me to the conclusion. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I just have our offer on the screen now. It's a free 30-day trial of SEMrush Guru plan, so you can try some of these things that we've gone over here. You got to activate in about a week's time. You have about 7 days to activate this trial. After you activate it, you will be able to run that trial plan for 30 days. And this is Guru. It's our mid-level plan. Should be suited to all of the purposes. What you're going to find is probably an introduction to the PLA data, but because of the complexity of PLA data, if you really want to use that, and it's very, very important for e-commerce, you're probably talking about the business plan rather than the Guru plan. But with that said, this will give you a good taste, and you can try all of these things that we've spoken about here. So back over to you, McKay.
Great. Couple quick questions here. First, what would you say is the biggest mistake companies make when interpreting this data? So they get in the system, they look at all this data. Are there common mistakes in terms of interpretation of it? Like, are they reading certain actions into data that isn't there? Because you and I both know that most of us have biases going into something before we see the data, right? What are some of those biases that you see, and how does that impact the decision making?
Yeah, so some of the biases that we might expect, depending on our audience today, might be that we tend to put a lot of weight in digital marketing and concentrate on that solely, and that's where a lot of money and research and concentration goes. And yet there are, there's the brick stores out there, and there are people, the moms and pops and the rest of it, who may not even to this date have a website. So there is sort of an underbelly to U.S. commerce that you could miss if you have things to sell to them. You still may have to employ some really traditional and old-fashioned methods of getting at some of those businesses. But for the most part, we're working with people who are cognizant of the power of digital marketing. They appreciate how much of a reach it gives them at such a low cost, and I expect that that's certainly most of the people that we have online with us today.
We have several people asking specifically about international competitive analysis. So just speak to that in terms of SEMrush's capabilities as well as some of the data that you can pull. I'm guessing in some international markets the data sets are less complete than in the U.S. and perhaps in Western Europe. Am I right there?
Yeah, so in the U.S., you're probably talking about 46 million domains, most popular domains in the U.S. We're also talking about I believe it's 105 million or whatever it is keywords that are part of the database. Again, the most popular stuff out there. If you're a niche, you may actually find that you want to go in and set up what we call the position tracker that we mentioned that gets you the ability to add your own particular keywords, and what you're basically doing is telling the SEMrush crawler to find niche websites and maybe more esoteric products and things online that might have been neglected otherwise, and you're really focusing it on that. As far as the international side, the databases for some of these other nations, UK and such, rather than 45 million, might go down to 10 million or 6 million in some other cases. But as far as the availability, if you can see the screen, you see you've got the US, you've got UK, Deutsche, France, and we've just added, in addition, Japan, which is great, and India, which is a kind of a challenging market. But if you wanted to sell into some of these markets, you're going to find some great information to work with. And this data can be pretty hard to come by otherwise.
Right, absolutely. Okay, one more question for you, and then I'll make a final comment. We'll close. So give us the typical profile of the person who uses your system. I mean, this is obviously someone who's running the AdWords efforts, for example, of their company. Is that the typical use case, or do you see directors and VPs using this data as well?
Yeah, so we get everybody from the kitchen table SEO to the in the trenches AdWords or SEO manager who's got 25 accounts going at once. People who run their own brands will have SEMrush in-house and apply it to their competitors. But when we're talking about the lead gen, the custom reports, we're talking about people who are international VPs of marketing at very large companies. I don't really necessarily want to name them, but people who sell, for instance, hosting and web domains and such worldwide, and they will grab a custom report and they will want 20 million results or something at a time. So they're smart enough and they have a big enough sales team that they need to feed leads to. They recognize the value in having that big data, and they'll get a bunch of it, and they may go away, and it's so much data that it takes them 6 months to exhaust the opportunity, and then they'll come back for a fresh result.
Great info. Well, Michael, thanks for doing this, man. We appreciate it. A final thought from me, the only thing I would throw into this mix is if you have this competitive data, you're going to be able to make significantly better decisions. That much is obvious. The question is, which decisions do you make and how do you use the data? That's really where the rubber meets the road. So very, very good stuff, Michael. We appreciate it. Any final thoughts from you before we close?
No, McKay, thanks for having us. Very happy to be here and get in front of the people that know you. We're looking forward to seeing if people are interested in trying these techniques out, and any questions that are perhaps unanswered at this point. We can make it a point to follow up with people more directly, and I'd be happy to do that.
Great. Michael, thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.